Right, today we've got a very special guest, someone I've been very close with for the past few months. He's the CEO of the Gladstone Airport. We've got Mark Cachia. How you going, mate?
Good, Lockie. Good. Look, thanks for inviting me, mate. As you know, I've been looking forward to this. After our very first meeting, you suggested I participate on the podcast. We've had some deep and meaningful discussions, which I think have benefited both of us. But it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm really looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah, no, it's an honour to have you here, and I really appreciate everything you've done for me. And I really want to dig into your life because, like you said, the intense conversations we've had, I've learned so much from, and it's something I feel like some other people can really benefit from. Starting off from there, obviously Maltese background. Your parents are from Italy or Malta,
Malta,
which
yeah,
is a nice little island just off Italy in the Mediterranean there.
yes, correct, yeah, yeah. Mum and dad both born in Malta. My mother born in Mostar, which is where the Mostar Dome is, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. It's one of my favourite spots. And my father was born in a town called Nashar, which is not very far from there.
And your parents have moved to Australia when they were married, or how'd
Yeah,
that play out?
yeah. So I'm a family of there's a family of 10 children. I'm the 10th child, the baby, sport brat. So mum and dad had 9 children, all born in Malta except for myself. And mum came out on the originally came out on one of those 10-pound fair poms, which was 10 pounds to get to Australia on a Qantas aircraft in those days. And like everything in life, my mother came to Australia and felt that she wanted to go back to Malta because she wanted to go back to the same way life was. Unfortunately, as we all know, that mum got back to Malta and things had already changed in 2 years. And so she came back on the Achille Laura, which is a ship, went down down south of Africa, which was quite heavy, the Roaring Forties, as it's known. I was 2 years old at the time. I still don't remember anything about it, but my main memories of my family life or my childhood are absolutely fantastic. I would never change it for anything.
Yep. So your mother's come back to Australia, and did you guys go straight to Sydney off the bat?
Yeah, they lived in Darlinghurst, where most people tended to get a place. My auntie and uncle were already here. My uncle was a real estate agent. My dad came back. He came first. We moved to Darlinghurst when we all got there, and then we moved to Mascot, which is a suburb in Sydney, New South Wales. Um, when we got here, we were only 9. Yes, that's right, 9. We missed one. I did say we had 10. And my mother had my grandfather, who owned a shop in Mostar, told my mother if she took all the kids back, he would die. So she had to leave a child behind. Apparently, there's a lot of arguing about who would stay behind, but my elder sister ended up staying with my grandfather. So I never grew up with my elder sister, and so we all came to Darlinghurst. We all started there, and then things started to evolve.
Yep. So growing up in Sydney, what was that like? Like, were your parents fluent in English by then, or did they still struggle to be able to communicate, obviously, with everyone?
Yeah, no, look, no, it's a good question actually, because we do tend to forget it. No, mum and dad never spoke English. They came here. My mother was the better English speaker than my father. My father was obviously the breadwinner and the one that went to work and earned the money, so he was socialising more. But my mother spoke English better, obviously broken English. My mother would say "stop bus" instead of "bus stop," which we all loved. And in saying that about my father and saying he was the breadwinner, my mother was the stalwart of the family. She was just incredible. She was the most amazing woman I've ever met, and I think I'll ever meet in my whole entire life. I think God made her and broke the mold.
Yep. How did you find school? Obviously, was a bit well, not really, because you were so young, I guess. So you never really experienced Malta
No.
at all. So I guess how'd you find it going to school every day with Australian kids and then coming home to an Italian family? Do you guys get referred to Italian, or is it
No,
just Maltese?
Maltese, yeah.
So how'd you find, going to school with Australians and then coming home to a
I'm sure
Maltese
there's a lot
family?
of people out there that relate to this. If you're a European in any way and you grew up in my era. I'm not as young as you think I am. um, you'd know what I'm talking about. So we used to go to school, and obviously we'd have salami sandwiches with either onion and tomato or whatever Mum would make. And the Aussie kids would come in with a or sort of ham and cheese sandwich or a Vegemite sandwich, and I was envious of them, and they were obviously envious of us. So it was great. Look, I loved hearing the stories of my parents' childhood, and I still love listening to my sisters talk about the childhood that they remember. Obviously, we're all very different. There's a big gap between the eldest to me being the youngest, but it was great. Like when when we moved away from Darlinghurst, we moved to Mascot, as I said. Um, we moved to a house which I can't remember. I can't remember it, but it wasn't too far from where we were. It was near Lestrange Park. Oh, not Lestrange Park, actually. Uh, Coronation Park, I think it was called. Like I've forgotten it already, believe it or not. And then we moved to a street called King Street, which led down to the Qantas jet base test cells. And Mum and Dad owned a shop at first, which was great because they had lollies, and I'd be raiding the lolly cabinet. And Mum and Dad made my mum made sandwiches. Dad was off working, and then we moved to a house a couple of doors down. I still remember it, 252 King Street. That's where I probably spent most of my life, and it was right across the road from school. So I would just wake up in the morning, cross the road, and go to school. If anything ever happened to school, I'd just cross the road and go back home. So it's great. I love school. I really love primary. I enjoyed high school. I think it was, I really enjoyed it.
So after high school, you actually went into teaching as well. Did you go straight to university and do teaching, or?
No, I actually went to TAFE to start looking at childcare. So started at a basic child psychology course, and then got a job teaching children at Miranda, which included children with disabilities or children in hospital, which was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It's exactly what I wanted to be, was a teacher. I sort of know now what I guess the meaning of life for me is. So yeah, I went straight into that. I probably lasted, I lasted in that job for 12 months. I studied for 3 years. I, um, I was going to Randwick Teachers College, but I ended up not going to that. Um, and yeah, basically worked at Miranda Kindy and looked after one particular, a couple of kids. There's a lot of broken families in those days. So they were single parent families. So it was quite sad. Um, they were trying to cope themselves. Their parents were trying to cope with it. So it was a very new trend in those days, believe it or not, in the early 80s. And then a miracle happened. The absolute miracle happened. It was a dream and a wish of my life.
Yep. So yeah, you've been in the childcare, but you want to do teaching, and then when did Qantas come into the picture?
Well, my sister worked for Qantas. My second eldest sister worked for Qantas many, many years beforehand, and then she worked for Air New Zealand. And I wanted to join Qantas, and that was my dream. Um, I remember because it was also down the road from me. I used to walk to the domestic terminal every month just to look at the aircraft and watch the terminal operate. And then um, a job came up at Qantas in reservations and the airport, and I applied for the reservations one, and they said to me, "Oh, what are you applying for this job for? You should be at the airport." I said, "Well, that's what I really want." And so I don't know what happened. I got a letter saying I was unsuccessful, but then 2 days later, I got a letter saying, "Would I like to take on a temporary role over Christmas, just doing wheelchairs and pushing wheelchairs and looking after departing aircraft?" And I said, "Absolutely." And they said the obvious things. It didn't guarantee you a job. Um, I did that, loved it, absolutely loved it, and worked for Qantas for about 33 years. It was amazing. I left. I left after 6 years. The first period I left after 6 years. I wanted to travel overseas. I was 21. And I decided, 6 or 7 years, I think it was 22, 23 actually. and I decided to travel. I went and lived in Malta for 18 months. I travelled around Europe, Asia, had an absolute ball. But then I came back. My brother was sick, and then I touched base or reached out to somebody that I knew in Qantas. And when she knew that I was back, she said, "Just leave it with me." And within a month or two, I was back in Qantas, and they were actually doing redundancies. So I was very, very lucky. A, to get in, and B, to be still there. I was quite lucky.
So I'll go back to obviously when you first got on the Qantas doing the wheelchairs and that.
Yep.
What did the next 6 years look like after that? How did you work your way up through the ranks?
So we worked. There's a group of us. We all worked pretty hard. Most of them uni degrees. There was a lawyer, economist. Can't remember what the other guy was. Anyway, there were four of us. And pretty much three of us or four of us stayed there for a long period of time. So we just enjoyed it. We did wheelchairs. We did departures. We proved that we could do things. I then I don't know, I just worked my butt off and really worked hard to get to what I wanted to be, which was a check-in agent, which we did. And that was at the international airport. So, we had to check passports, we had to check in. And I became really confident in my role. I then got offered a ticketing role, which, and I should say, going back a step, Qantas had never employed an external person directly to the airport in many, 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 many years since its inception. So we were extremely lucky, and the first cohort really. And then I was asked if I would join the ticketing counter, and nobody had ever been to the ticketing counter that hadn't been in the airport for 10 years. I'd only been there for 3. And it was my biggest fear, because in those days it wasn't just what they call point-to-point ticketing. There was fare construction, so it was really complicated. So it was a challenge for me, and I think it's where I've learned to challenge myself. And that the challenge that I made was I need to understand how fares work and how people calculate them. I try to run away from it a couple of times. It's funny how you are, but I acknowledge that now. I know that I did a few things to run away from that position, but I did. I became a ticketing expert, and the staff used to come to me for advice. We had big telephone book type air tariffs that you turn it, it's like toilet paper was the paper, and you had to understand each of the rules and why the fare rule was constructed in Zurich the way it was. And so I became so familiar with it, or if there was any way to issue a ticket legally but changing some of the rules to suit the passenger, people would come to me and see me, and I really liked that. So that was really exciting. That was probably the first 4 or 5, 6 years, and then I decided to go to live in Malta. And I became a front office manager for a travel agency. So I used those skills again when I was in Malta.
Yep. For a bit of reference, what year did you do all of Europe and Malta and that?
So I joined Quantis in 1983. And I became permanent in 84. So it would have been about 89. It would have been about 1990.
Yep. And when you've come back, you obviously said you had a close friendship. You obviously had a good friendship. Someone's still with Qantas. She said, "Leave it with me." You got back into Qantas. What role did you go straight? Did you go straight back into the ticketing position?
Yeah. So what happened was she was my coach and mentor. And she put me straight into the ticket machine. She put me straight in the ticketing desk, and then from that, I just continued to work there. And then from that, I became a supervisor. Was the next thing I did.
Yep. So ticketing supervisor. I know you've told me yourself you've had many ordeals through Qantas. Obviously, there's a lot of people also trying to make their way through the ranks.
Yeah.
What are probably, would you say, be the biggest challenges that you faced working at Qantas?
I think I've never worked for any business really other than when I worked at Miranda Kindergarten and then Qantas. I liken it to a ladder, and there's $1 million at the top of that ladder and everybody's trying to reach it. So you've got hundreds of people. Or if you saw that when the airport was trying to pick up um, uh, people in, I think it was Tehran, or it could have been, where was that? Not Afghanistan. It was one of those countries, and they all converged to the airport. They're all holding onto the aircraft nose wheel. It reminded me of that. So people were really ambitious, which is great. I don't think at that time Qantas knew how to handle that well. But it was definitely going to the ticket counter is a good example. I got the ticket counter, as I said. I got straight onto when I got the first time I got onto the ticket counter. Nobody had ever moved there. There was a guy that had come from engineering, was also at the airport working as a check-in agent. He complained to the manager that I'd been promoted before him. I then got called up, told that I had to go back to check-in. And then when I went and saw the manager saying, I don't understand what's happening, this is crazy, he said, don't worry, go back down. You're now back on the ticket counter. It was just about showing this guy that, and him wanting me to prove to him that I really wanted the job.
Yeah, righto. So working through that, you've been at Qantas, you've done all your years of experience there. Did you then move on? What was next? What was next from Qantas? Where'd you go from there?
There's a big gap because there's a whole lot of stuff I did in Qantas. Qantas is like its own country, with a different workforce for different things. So I did a lot of stuff in Qantas. Great. I'm grateful to Qantas for everything I've done because I experienced new jobs, new skills, countries, cultures, people. And then from that, I remember doing a course when Alan Joyce got appointed into Qantas, and it was a recognised leaders course. In other words, my manager recognised me as being one of the leaders that would become an executive at some point. Absolutely loved doing the course, but the guy that was or the facilitator doing the course had really hit some important notes for me, and he talked about things like life skills opposed to education and how important life skills are opposed to education, and it rang true. I'd been in Qantas for 32 years, as I said, 31, 32 years at that point. Knew nothing else. If I lost my job, what would I do? There are all those thoughts going on my head. I was doing an assignment for the course, and I got a phone call from a company called MSS Security, and I decided to put in for redundancy with Qantas and take on the role at MSS, and that all panned out really well. It flowed quite well. Left Qantas, had a break, and then started off with MSS.
What challenges did MSS?
SS, yeah.
What challenges did they bring you?
Challenges that they brought me. Well, to be honest, it was an interesting role. Security is a very male-dominated area. I'm a male, obviously, but I also grew up with 5 sisters. Grew up with women around me a lot. It was very different. My manager was a woman for 12 to 18 months. Then she left and I took on her role, which is a more senior role. The challenges for me weren't so much around the job. I knew I could do the job, but it was about changing culture, I think, more important, more than anything. And that culture is not just the corporate culture about all male domination or dominant males. This is about changing the culture in the security industry as well.
Yep. And I guess, how long did you end up serving at MSS for?
I think it was about eight years or so.
8 years, wow.
Yeah.
And then from there, is that when you then got your first role as CEO at Coffs Harbour Airport? Was that next in line, or?
No. So after that, I left. I had some medical and health conditions that were quite stressful, and I decided to leave MSS. I then tried getting back into what I started off with in my life, in my work life. I didn't enjoy it. The world has completely changed. I'll say it here. I know there will be people out there that potentially won't like what I say, but I think political correctness has become woke. I think it's gone way too far. To the point where you've got to be careful what you say. So people aren't real anymore. Where we're all very cautious about what we say, how we say it, when we say it. and what we do, which is really sad. I'm a strong believer in diversity and equality. That is definitely something I am, definitely am for. But I definitely think the challenges we had were the cultural change, because we were sort of lucky. We had to have 50-50, have 50% women in the operational area and 50% male. It's just the way the regulations the way it's regulated. But also, I started to realise that people, a lot of people lie, lie about what they believe in, lie about what their values are, because they talk about what they want people to hear, but in the background they don't really believe what they say. And what I mean by that is that like security is a good example. Um, we 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 we, they're paid extremely low, and airports are always saying how high their security, they value it and all the rest of it, and so do the airlines, but they're not prepared to pay for it, and that's frustrating for me. But after I did that, as I say, after I did that, I tried to go back into childcare. That didn't work, and then I went to Coffs Harbour as the operations manager, not the CEO, but the operations manager. And I did that for about 3 years. And then I got a phone call about whether I was interested in the CEO's role in Gladstone.
Yep, righto. Before we jump to Gladstone, I guess going back into security, obviously, how much is involved with that in dealing with security at like airports? So MSS, they're at airports too,
Yep.
airport security. So how much like preparation, training, and all the behind the scenes goes into that?
Oh,
Obviously, you guys got to allow for like terrorist attacks, pretty much everything,
yeah.
really being an airport.
So training is paramount. The equipment's important, but the human factor side of it is equally as important. So people making decisions as to whether is that an IED or is that not. Um, so training is vital. So we had to look at different ways of training and keeping people alert. Because if you're just in front of a screen for 4 hours, you're just staring at the screen, and by that time, sort of blasé about it and let things go. Whereas, so that was quite critical. So training is very, very important. It's definitely a big part of it. The equipment does the other side of it, and then there's also and the bit people forget about. People take their job seriously, so it's hard for them to, and in particular the people that are employed in that role. Sometimes it is hard to differentiate between being a security officer and being a customer service agent. So they've also got to learn that people skills. You can't just say empty your bag. It's about, excuse me, sir, do you mind emptying your bag? So there's a difference. You're saying the same thing, but just in a different way. So that's the other piece of the training that we do.
And I guess with your operations, like what was probably the biggest, if you had any like, I guess biggest situation or biggest threat you've ever experienced where it was like an actual mass emergency or lockdown? Did you ever have experiences?
I haven't had, we've never experienced it. Um, we've never experienced one that has been devastating or that it could have been a threat, that I have attended. Um, but I have attended a number of natural disasters that when I worked for Qantas, we had to attend, and that was quite mind blowing. Probably affected me a few years after, mentally. So we did the tsunami. I took a 747 to. I think it was a 76 to Singapore, and then when I got to Singapore, switched over to a 74. Or it might have been a 74 all the way. I had about $40,000 in a bag with me to pay for airport fees that we needed. And we had to pick up people in Sri Lanka, the Maldives, and it was just horrific because just the fear on their faces and the sheer relief that we had arrived was incredible. Bali bombing too, which is the second bombing, Jimbaran Bay. That had a bit of a profound effect on me, because our airport manager, Heru, his mother got killed. His babysitter was severely injured. His children were lucky to be alive because she'd been over playing with them at the restaurant when the bomb hit. And when we took a 767, I took a team of about 13, 14 people. We checked in. We had to do repatriation, so people that had been killed, we had to take them in their coffins back to Australia on the aircraft. We had people arriving at the airport, damaged, not just physically but mentally. So again, that really affected me, and in particular how the Indonesians and I'll say Muslims, I think it is, but how they um, look at death. And so there were pictures all over in Bali of all the dead people, and it was really difficult because it wasn't just a picture of them when they were living; it was a picture of them when they were dead. So that was really it was really confronting for me. I've done Fiji when Fiji had flooding, a cyclone. The other really devastating one, and this is not answering your question, I know that, but these are just some of the things that I've been involved in. Lebanon, when Lebanon got bombed, that was terrible. It was, again, heart-wrenching to see young children coming home or coming to Australia from a war-torn country. But in terms of anything else, look, we're really prepared for IEDs, improvised explosive devices. So if a bag's left alone, we have a procedure that we follow. I still remember in Qantas, one of my jobs was to look at security and reduce the cost of our security costs. It didn't mean trying to do anything that was not compliant, but looking whether our costs were in the right place. And we'd spent $250,000 on what they called containment units. So if we had a bomb, we'd place the bomb into the containment unit. And it was such a poor decision. And I'm looking at that retrospectively, so I can't be disrespectful to the people that made that decision then, but we had to get rid of them because nobody would move it. Nobody would move the unit if it had a bomb in it. So the bomb would just remain in the airport. And nobody had communicated with the AFP, with the local police, with the emergency response teams. So I sort of created a group where we spoke about it before we decided not to, and they were all very comfortable and grateful that we'd actually decided not to do it because nobody had been consulted. And these things happen. This is just part of, part of learning, and that's why we do exercises and learn and do those sorts of things.
No, I'm really glad you actually went into that about when you're with Qantas, you've done all these, I guess you could say, world events, well, devastating world events, because I didn't actually realize Qantas did all that. So diving a bit deep into that, so is that when did Qantas start doing this? Like they would more so like go out and help countries when they are having natural disasters or terrorist attacks and that.
So to be fair, it's the Australian government that pays for the aircraft.
Oh, okay, right.
Qantas will give them a discounted rate and potentially sometimes provide aircraft for free.
Right, so it's not so much Qantas, more of a government effort.
Yeah.
And the government's paying Qantas to that, and then you're completing the service with Qantas.
Yeah, they deploy me as a lead to lead the team from a customer service check-in perspective, and then come back. When we did all those things, PTSD wasn't a thing. I don't know whether that's what I had then, but it did have as I said, and I use those words, profound effect on me. But it also had a positive effect because it made me realise how lucky we are here in Australia. And I guess that's another thing about the world, if I could say, and I'm not using this as a stage to give my views, but I just wish there was more love than hate. And wars, I still think it's politicians head to head, and the people that are fighting it don't really know why they're fighting, but they fight. So,
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. How, I guess someone like myself didn't realise how lucky we were to live in Australia. I guess like for a lot of people, a lot of Australians don't ever really travel overseas if they do, it's like to maybe even America or New Zealand, not
Mm.
so much Asia or Africa, even parts of Europe. So I guess staying on the topic, like, and maybe diving into abundance mindset, like, really, did you grow a lot more? Like you already mentioned it, but you obviously grown a lot more appreciation for growing up in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I thank God for everything I've got, everything I own, everything I've done. I'm not perfect. I've done things wrong in my life. I understand that. And I think you and I have spoken about this, and things always happen for a reason, and there's a direction that we choose the direction. God doesn't give it to us. He puts those choices in front of us, and we got to choose which one to take. Sometimes it's the wrong choice. Sometimes it's the right choice. Sometimes it's just a bit of a U-turn, and you're going around in circles a bit, and that's all good. And I think what I've learned from some of these things is that we're extremely lucky. We're extremely blessed. Um, we I'm very big on, and this, Lachlan. I'm really big on um, youth promoting themselves and youth getting ahead. I really value that very much. I'm in Rotary, so we do a lot of work with the local community. I wish I could do more. One of the things I did when I left Quantis before I joined MSS was to join Orange Skies, which was a laundry service in Sydney. They're all over the country now. And I used to pick up a van, drive the van, 2 washing machines, 2 dryers. The homeless would come to us and we'd wash their clothing and then dry them for them. And in the meantime, we'd be having conversations with them, which was fantastic because I got to meet people that were 70 and 80 down to 18, 19, all different walks of life. Um, from a gay couple that were living under cardboard that were trying to come to terms with their families not accepting them, to an 80-year-old that had decided that he just didn't want to be a part of the normal life, so to speak. And then to those that are around 40 and 50s who had really good jobs like lawyers and decided that was just way too much and they opted out of life. Absolutely amazing. It's incredible, So I definitely feel that every little piece that happens to me along the way, just adding to my personality and what I'm learning.
Yep. And have you found that having a family? Um, Obviously, have you been able to having all these life experiences and then having a family of your own? What perspective did you go into that new stage in your life with?
Yeah. So it's an interesting question at an interesting time. I'm separated from my wife now. And when I said earlier, I probably made some mistakes and I've probably done some good stuff. Um, Absolutely love my wife. I still do. I loved her very much. We had 3 children, 3 beautiful children. My son Jed, my daughter Bronte, and my youngest daughter Abby. In actual fact, my son turns 24 tomorrow, so it's great. Um, that changed my life completely. It changed it just realizing that, wow, 2 human beings in love can create a being. It was just amazing.
Yep.
It's just, I know it sounds funny, but
That's very true.
it was amazing. And,
Yeah.
I was at the birth of all 3 of my children. I made sure of that. It wasn't until I got, and women will laugh at this, but it wasn't until I got to the 3rd child that when the nurse said to me, "Oh, look, there's the head," and I looked in and I thought, "Oh shit, I can see it." The other 2 I couldn't see. We sat there for minutes and minutes and couldn't tell what I was looking at. And eventually I just said, "Oh yeah, I can see it." I didn't see a thing until the baby came out. So look, they made a huge difference. I guess for me, I changed, and that's I'm still trying to work that out in my life. Is why work became more important. My wife says that to me, and I agree with her. My job took over. I love my current job. I really enjoy it. I think I'm a successful, um, and I'm not successful just financially, but I'm successful because the team believe in themselves. They were really, I guess, unsure of themselves, if you could say, through previous management. We've got a really great, robust, cohesive team. The airport looks fantastic, but I just, uh, something just happened, and I think my world changed a bit, and things have happened in my life that I don't know whether we'll cover that has made me a different person. Value things differently, look at things differently, and obviously, you can never say never, as they say.
Yep. So obviously being at the Gladstone Airport, like you were just talking about, you've been there for 5 years now. And yeah, taking on this role, you had to leave Coffs Harbour, which is where your family still lives today. Um, do you, and I know we've spoken about this, but obviously it's something you don't still regret, would you say?
I didn't probably until the last couple of months. Not regret, but thinking about whether I regret it. Um, for my family, I do. For me, I don't. If that makes any sense. I just can't work that out though. I can't work out the percentages or anything. But yeah. Look, I do have some regrets. But yeah, I moved my family to Coffs Harbour. We've got a beautiful home. It's a beautiful town. I work here every day. I used to work here every day, and then go to Coffs once a month. Now I live and work here. I used to go home once a month. Now that's stopped, obviously, since we've separated.
Yep. It's definitely one of those things you hear quite often. Obviously, a lot of men working away to support their families, and unfortunately, sometimes it can be on very long time frames,
Yep.
and it does lead to, you know, I guess the family's still back home wondering like, are they doing it for the money or are they doing it for us? Like, it's very challenging, and
Yeah, I agree. Look, absolutely. And COVID didn't help because I couldn't go down to New South Wales. I was trapped here. Although I did sneak across the border once, and when I came back, I knew what was going to happen. I came back and had to isolate for whatever it was, 2 weeks in isolation in a hotel, which cost me $6,000, which was fine. It was worth it. But yes, it's definitely it. Look, it's difficult for both sides. It's difficult for the male who's trying really hard to provide for the family and get things right. It's also hard for the wife who's trying to raise children and trying to work out, trying to have a partner there. I can understand that. I don't question that at all.
yep. But obviously, at your time in the Gladstone Airport, you've had, many, you, what you've done in the Gladstone Airport, like I know myself, is they were, losing money for years, I guess, and you've come along with your expertise and kind of turned that around.
Yeah, I don't know about expertise. I think God's been on the shoulder and just telling me what to do. Um, but yeah, look, I've got a really strong belief in people management. It's my background. I love people management. I love motivating people. I like to be a mentor and a coach. So I look back now at what I've got, um, and what they've achieved, and I can see I've done the right things by them, and they've done the right things by me. So I really believe that if you can make your people happy, then what happens is they make your business work. I mean, if your business works, then it makes money. So yeah, look, we haven't provided our council a dividend for, I can't remember the number of years, but many years. Until last year, we gave them a hefty dividend, and this year we'll give them another dividend, um, which is fantastic, and they're really excited. That just means the money goes back into the local community. But it's not only financially that we've done well. With the airport's looking fantastic. We've done things that we've said we were going to do 10, 15 years ago, and we've done them. The gardening looks great. It's a welcoming place to get to. I mean, Lockie, you've been there. The guys there are all happy. Very rarely are they unhappy. Um, they're happy. We celebrate our Madness Wednesdays, which is our trademark shirt day. Everybody has to wear one, including me. and we have a barbecue once a month, and that's to celebrate mental health because I'm really pro helping or supporting mental health.
Yep. It it's definitely like that when you go there. Like everyone is, it's hard finding, I guess you could say, workplaces where people really enjoy going to work and they're smiling all day. Because every time I go there, everyone's having a ball almost. It's almost like, hey, he's working, or is there a party going on here?
Yeah, no, and that's good. You know what? Smiling's great because it exercises muscles in your face that you don't normally use. That's
Mm.
the first thing. And the other thing is, you know what? You go home and there's so many problems with people. You know, people have either got wives that aren't well, or they've got husbands that are away, or they've got children that aren't behaving, or they've got parents that are sick, or they've got financial issues, or whatever. Um, so we try and make it a place where you come to work and it's carefree. It has to be. We are like a family. So if somebody's sick, we're all there for them. Now we do a lot of activities to support our workforce, and we definitely try everything we can and in improving how we do it. And we do employee engagement surveys to find out what it is that they want. You know, what do they need from us?
I guess, yeah, like diving into that more, why do you think so many workplaces do suffer? Like, have work environments where it's so, I guess you could say, miserable.
Mm.
Everyone, no one enjoys work. Everyone's pointing fingers, blaming each other. What do you think the main issue of that is?
Um, I think so. I've worked majority of the industries I've worked in. Sorry, companies I've worked in are large. I think you can lose. I think you can lose the workforce, and you have to rely on middle management. And I've got to be honest, middle management, I don't think have the skills sometimes, and all too often, people progress from the lower ranks up just because they've been there the longest, not necessarily because they're the best or they have the skills. So I see that as a problem. Direction, about where does the company want to go, and is the employees and the middle management doing it? Um, and I think the other thing is, look, let's sort of expose the wild elephant in the room. Businesses are there to make money, but some businesses are there to make money, um, um, regardless of what it takes. So they will, you know, they will do anything possible to get money, and um, you know, you see it. You see it with large organisations. You see it with small organisations. They're purely there to make a profit. If profit's what you want, then you got to be mindful that you're going to lose your workforce, and that's what a lot of people, a lot of people forget. So Einstein used to say, um, um, no, it wasn't Einstein. Sorry, the COO said to the chief financial officer said to the CEO, "But if we train them and they leave, what do we do?" And he said, "Well, what if we train them and they stay?" So the CFO was more worried about training them and spending all the money on training and losing them, with the CIO is just saying, "What if we train them and they stayed?" And I think for me, I keep that in my back of my head. That the training of my guys is not just about the work they do. It's about what skills they can grow and take with them when they leave Gladstone Airport. It's great to have those skills when they're with me, but what are they going to do when they leave? I'm preparing them for the future. Now, they might stay with us forever. That's great, but it makes them feel good because we're investing in them. We're investing in their skills and them personally. Um, but I don't think there's enough organisations that do it. They train them once, they let them go, and that's it. So a lot of the complaints I hear around, oh, my manager's done this to me, and my manager's done that. Oh, they won't let me do that, or all they're worried about is making money. So it's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy. And I've got a workforce of 17, now 31. Now that we've taken over our cafe, so it's difficult. It's not an easy thing. But even when I was at Qantas and at MSS, I did change the culture. So you can do it. You just got to be focused. And I don't think there's enough people that believe in their staff or their people. And I think that's that's another piece that makes people a bit unhappy. That um, there's no belief in them.
When you join new corporations or say like MSS or the Gladstone Airport, how much of a do you almost set like a business plan for yourself, and like how much of a time frame do you give yourself
Yep.
to be able to achieve goals?
Yeah, good question. So I do the 100 days. It's basically 30, 60, 90. And then some people just do the 90 days. So I do 100. So the first 30 days is just walk in there, just look around, don't comment, watch people. The next 30 days is about doing the same thing, but starting to think, okay, I could change that, I could change that. And the next, that's 60. And then at the next 30 days, which is 90, then you start to implement and you start to talk about the changes and implement those changes that you've got. And then for me, the last 10 days is about making sure that what we've talked about has been communicated properly and that everybody understands it.
How do you communicate that? What's your method of choice
Yep.
that has the best results? And the
Face to face. Absolutely. Even at MSS. So it was very well known that when I used to go to an airport, I would, so when you go to an airport, you've got to put things in a tray and then you'd put the tray through, the x-ray goes out. So I would be very well known at Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Hobart, and all the regional airports, which are just as important, like, Coffs Harbour, Ballina. I would actually stand there and I'd actually ask people to divest their things in the tray, act like I was a security officer. It's not illegal. I'm actually just divesting. I'm not doing any of the screening. And then I'd also collect trays and things like that. And in that period of time, then I could actually talk to people about what it is they're doing, how they're finding things. And I get a feel. So people then get a sense of trust, right? Um, it's sort of like a day in the shoes of a CEO. So getting somebody in to sit in my chair. But that's a really hard thing to it's a really hard thing to manage in a big organisation. It at Gladstone, it's quite easy. I'll go into the hangar or the shed, and the boys will be there, and I'll talk to them, or I meet guys outside of work and we have a chat. I think you were there yesterday when I got a phone call from somebody wanting to catch up. So I keep myself very open and available for people. I think that's really important.
these skills that you have like the 90, well, for some people, like you said, it's 90, but for yourself, it's 100. All these little skills, where have you picked them up from years of experience or mentors in your life?
Both. So Qantas is great at giving me those skills, training us. I've had and I've still got some fantastic mentors that I'll never ever forget. Um, One of them, Roger Lindemann, worked for Quantis, then for Virgin, quite senior roles. He's fantastic. You know, he's got he's got the same attributes that I've got in dealing with people. I've got Martha Travis, who does our HR. She's a great HR mentor for me. But yes, I grasp it from a lot, but it's also watching people, how they do things.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I'm really starting to pick up is the importance of mentors. Would you say that having a mentor is almost like it's a need, like you have to have a mentor to be able to grow? I guess you don't need it, but if you want to get to places faster, that having a mentor there is going to be definitely one of your greatest assets.
Yeah, I think they're important. I think they are needed. You got to find a good one. You got to find one that's not just doing it for a course that wants to tick the box says I'm a mentor. Um, and I don't know anybody I know doesn't do that. But you've got to find a mentor that's available and available to you, that's able to give you time and give you advice from their work experience and life experience, because that's what mentorship is. It's about you and it's about the two people talking about what are the issues, how do you go about fixing it, and what was it as the mentor did I experience in my work life that might help you get through it.
And another really good question that um, I really want to know is, I guess, obviously you've had many years experience of being mentored. for those who want to find mentors and then how to be able to, like, I guess, make the most out of their mentors, how do you go about that in terms of like when you meet with them, or what's your game plan when you go to?
Yeah, I think the first thing you need, pick a good mentor, somebody that you've watched and you've seen and has the same values and beliefs as you. Because there's no point picking somebody that, I don't know, swears at their staff or, um, diminishes people's responsibilities or any of that. Make sure there's somebody that's aligned with your values. I think the other thing is take real problems to them. Like, take some notes. Last week I was dealing with Billy and this is what happened with Billy, blah, blah, blah. And then let them help you with a solution, or reaffirm that what you've done is correct. I think they're the key things, because you can generally talk about things in general, but and the other thing is making sure that mentor is always there for you. Like if you're going to meet every second Wednesday, that they meet every second Wednesday. I know it's not possible sometimes, but if you've gone 6 months without meeting, then I'd say there's a problem.
100%. We'll come back to Gladstone Airport. You mentioned local community. How important is it, not so much like for the Gladstone Airport, but for like businesses to be able to give back to the local community? How important is that?
Yeah, look, that's a really important aspect of this role and being a part of Gladstone. So we're doing a number of things. One of our big key things that we do, and we report back to council, is that we have community engagement. So when I first started in this role, our engagement community was really poor. It has improved dramatically, and the thing is that industry's changing, and it's funny that you asked that question because I only had meetings this week with a number of large industries about their support into the community, and it's changed where maybe about 5, 6, 10 years ago, people, councils and people would put their hands out for money and they'd get it. Now, companies want to know what are they going to get out of it? What's the company going to get out of it, and what are the people going to get out of it? And most of the time, the people in the community are their own employees, as you know here. Majority of organisations have their employees living in the community. So I think in a town like ours, where 80% of our revenue is big business, it's really important to make sure we get it right. But not only about just getting the money, it's about making sure we spend the money in the right place that helps people get what they need.
Yep. And I know Gladstone being a regional town, we have all this industry and the money we turn over is crazy. And I know one big problem is, unfortunately, a lot of the money keeps going to Brisbane.
Mm.
It doesn't get invested back into, small regional towns or North Queensland towns anyway, that are making all the coin in that. And I know one thing that yourself at the Gladstone Airport trying to do is try to bring in the Royal Flying Doctor Service new facility, due to the fact that because money's not being put back into Gladstone and it is going on to Brisbane, our hospitals can't support major incidents. Can you go into a bit more detail about like what you're trying to do there with the Royal Flying
absolutely.
Doctor Service?
So most regional towns have either a helicopter base or an patient transfer facility. Recently, Rockhampton opened one up, and Emerald opened one up, and Brisbane Airport's just recently announced it's having a emergency precinct. So basically, in 2012, we got a temporary facility for a patient transfer facility, which is just a igloo type thing. It's not fit for purpose. It's not really personable or personal. Sorry, it's not personal. The problem with the reason is because passengers are transferred in open air, regardless of weather, and so that's an issue in itself. Family members can't see them. Sometimes you get family members standing at the fence looking through. So what we want to do is on the other side of the aerodrome, or what we call the northern side, we want to put a new passenger transfer facility in. And that passenger transfer facility will be available for family members to come, either meet their families that are being transferred or greet their family members that are arriving. And it'll be a lot easier for the ambulances to traverse into that facility. Whereas at the moment, we've got speed humps going into where they've got to get to. So if you've got a spinal injury patient, can you imagine the pain they're going through? Whereas on the other side, we'll be able to have direct access from the street into the facility. So we are working with industry to try and government to try and help fund and build that facility. And the feedback what they were getting is we really need to have it. And the reason we need to have it is it needs to be personal. It needs to be private. It needs to show people that we respect them. And it's a really important thing because, as you mentioned, we don't have all the medical facilities here in Gladstone. And that's understandable. You're not going to have a heart surgeon sitting down to do heart surgery if he only does 1 or 2 surgeries a month. We wouldn't expect that. So, but we do need to have something that allows us to transfer them in a respectful manner, and that gets them into a hospital somewhere that's able to do that surgery.
Obviously, over all the years, you've done 30 plus years at Quantis. You've obviously, is it volunteered time for Orange? Washing all the homeless's clothes, all these hours you've done. You worked at Coffs Harbour, MSS Security, Gladstone Airport. How do you determine success? Would you put it?
Success in my life is making sure that when I leave Gladstone Airport, it's operating like clockwork, which I know it will. Now that we've got the guys in the way they are, I'd really like to get into a lot more volunteer work as I get older and go into retirement, helping people. That's really important to me, regardless of what that looks like. But yeah, helping people. I don't measure it by money or success. I think that's just a bit materialistic. But I definitely think success for me is, being recognised for the good work I do, and maybe being able to, share some of that knowledge and the learnings that I've had with other people.
Yeah, 100%. I really, really, really appreciate your time today, Mark. Like I said, you've had a massive impact already on my life, and helped me in ways I can't even explain. With obviously starting our own business, the business world can be scary, but you've already helped me. Like, you've almost held my hand, I guess you could say, through the process. And I'm in a position now where the confidence I'm at is just beyond what I could even, well, beyond what I believe I could do. Or what was possible for me anyway. So I really want to say, really appreciate it.
And look, it's an absolute pleasure, mate. And all I've done is given you guidance. You've done it all yourself, and that's what's great. You're good at what you do. But thank you for letting me speak and share how I've experienced my life so far.
Awesome. No worries. All right. Thanks again, Mark.
Thanks.